One aspect of Doctor Who's wider universe, specifically from Big Finish, that I have not dived into yet is the Paternoster Gang. They've been doing these audio adventures, these characters introduced under the Stephen Moffat run of Doctor Who, the Paternoster Gang, solving crimes and supernatural stuff in Victorian London. They've been doing many adventures from Big Finish over the past few years, and now, with the Paternoster Gang Trespassers, they've got a whole new subset, a new whole sub-series that is going to be panning out over the next couple of years. With this one, Rogues Gallery, we have a trilogy of stories set in Victorian London starring the Paternoster Gang. We've got The Ghost and the Potato Man by Barnaby Kay. We've got Symmetry of Death by Dan Starkey, who plays Strax, and we've got Till Death Do Us Part by Lisa McMullen. And this is not just any Paternoster Gang box set. This is a Paternoster Gang box set with Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor. You see how there's a certain roundness to these live streams, folks. It's almost as if I bloody planned it. For those of you who don't know, the Paternoster Gang are in Victorian London, and Madame Vastra is essentially the head of this crime-solving underground investigatory company that's based in London and works with the police. We saw this at the beginning of Deep Breath when the T-Rex came and started stomping around London. The police called Vastra to investigate, and then the T-Rex burps out the TARDIS and all of that stuff happens. So Vastra has got connections with the police, and then they solve a bunch of crimes. And one of the crimes that appears on their doorstep is a bunch of strange blue spectral ghost-like creatures are committing robberies at the same time every single night, and one of them appears at a nearby theatre show, at a nearby bar, pub with a stage where there's somebody there who roasts the crowd and warms up the audience for all of the acts coming in. And just as they're making their way through one of these performances, they get introduced to the titular ghost. Let's play a clip from The Ghost and the Potato Man.
Order, order, order your grub and bub from the Dashers. We'll be back in a jiffy with more of our melange of musicality, magic and mirth.
Order my bub from the Dasher.
Hello, Mr. Strax.
What do you want, boy?
Your bub is a drink, Mr. Strax, and I'm a dasher on account of me running about all the time.
It's slang, Strax.
Ugh, slang.
Good evening, Madam Vastra. Jenny.
Hello, Ellie.
Miss Higson, is Mr. Jago not here?
Oh, yourself and the Professor have taken off on another cruise, madam. Something of a break, as I understand it. That's why I asked you to come.
Is there trouble?
It's probably nothing, but I want you to see the new illusionist act, Mr. Galdor.
I've heard about him, Mom. It's a disappearing act. All very convincing, apparently.
See for yourself. He's on now.
Hey, Ellie, we need some belly timber over here. Chop, chop.
No rest for the wicked.
Dabs, dingers, gammoners, lend me your orbs.
What?
Now, let's have a little stum in the room, shall we? Eh? Now, what you are about to witness is going to scramble your tiny noggins. Please welcome on stage the amazing Galdor!
Also, for context, one of the characters in that clip was Ellie, who's a barmaid played by Lisa Bowerman. Apparently, Ellie is a character from the Jago and Lightfoot Big Finish adventures, and she is apparently a vampire. I do not know if the Paternoster Gang know that. I did not know that going in, but that's just what we're dealing with in Victorian London, apparently. So, this story, The Ghost and the Potato Man, is this mystery where they're trying to figure out this ghost that's behind this disappearing act, and this one and the other ghosts that are apparently at the same time as this act is happening are committing thefts all around London. So Vastra and the rest of the Paternoster Gang are on the case. However, the title, The Ghost and the Potato Man, is because Strax ends up becoming very involved. Strax winds up getting involved in the theatre troupe nearby because he essentially gets roasted at the beginning of one of the shows because he is as wide as he is tall and he looks like a potato man, and gets brought up onto the stage and makes such a good impression that he's essentially hired as one of the supporting warm-up acts for the shows taking place in this London nightclub, and that means that he's not around much to help with this mystery, which really annoys Vastra. And Strax has no idea what the lingo is. Strax has no idea what the theatre speak behind the scenes is. Doesn't know what break a leg means. He just wants to try and break all of those bones for the glory of the Sontaran Empire. And it sounds like a skit that should not work and is not and should not be as funny as it is. But I don't know why, but in The Ghost and the Potato Man, it kept on being consistently funny. Now, the actual mystery itself is engaging. This is essentially, this whole box set is a series of sci-fi coded Sherlock Holmes style mysteries where you've got these strange happenings on the streets of London, and you've got this underground organisation, the Paternoster Gang, who are working with the police outside the government, beyond the police, you could say, and are solving it in Victorian London using their expertise and their knowledge of aliens and supernatural and Homo reptilia and things like that. And honestly, in terms of Big Finish box sets and pitches, I've heard of worse ones. That actually sounds quite enthralling and quite engaging if it works out well. And thankfully for The Ghost and the Potato Man, it's a very entertaining and very fun heist story. But what I'll say is that I wish that maybe the subplot with Strax the Potato Man becoming a stand-up comedian actually embedded itself more into the A-plot with the ghost mystery that Vastra and Jenny are much more invested in, and maybe the two could have collided at some point. Basically, it amounts to a bit of a subplot that kind of just resolves itself off screen. It's entertaining, but when you get to the third act and then that subplot with the Potato Man has kind of stopped, you're kind of thinking, what was the point of that? I was entertained, but what was the point of that? But I will say that Rogues Gallery, this box set, does really hit its stride with the second story, Symmetry of Death by Dan Starkey, who does play Strax, of course. And this is a full-on, unabashed Sherlock Holmes mystery story, with all of the traits and the hallmarks that you'd expect of the genre, including the murder of somebody behind a locked door on the top floor of a building. How did the intruder get in? Why is there no evidence of a struggle? Things like that. But it's up to Vastra, Jenny and Strax to solve this mystery, where somebody who you could describe as a socialist goes missing. So Comrade Strax is on the case. He investigates the crime scene, finds these strange burn marks on the carpet, and it's up to Vastra, Jenny and Strax as well to figure out the case. Let's play a clip from Symmetry of Death.
Compressed gas cylinders integrated into a timing mechanism. These do, on first examination, look like explosives.
I further suggest they are extraterrestrial in origin.
That don't sound good. A missing person with a sackload of alien bombs.
I am also interested in the timing of Gabriel's disappearance. You said that the porter locked this door just before 11 p.m.
Correct.
That's about the time Mrs. Cudd knocked on Quilter's door.
Meaning the disappearance and the murder may have happened simultaneously.
Coincidence?
Perhaps. But the proximity of the club and the hotel is interesting. Strax's instincts to investigate were correct.
Thank you, madam.
Even if his foray did not yield more than basic intelligence.
I must protest. After your admonition about the pie shop conflagration, I was exercising restraint.
I am sure you were, Strax. But we have additional information now. Jenny, I propose you and Strax have another look at the club. I will try the other address on Gabriel's map.
Jeb Sally, keep your wits about you.
I shall, my dear.
Madam, I am happy to return, but surely I will be recognised. My distinctive Sontaran charm and physique will have made an impression on the decrepit humans there.
Perhaps if I go inside and do the snooping this time.
You can try, lad, but they don't let women ones in there.
We have dealt with such eventualities before. Jenny, you know what to do.
Oh, great.
I will wire Company's house to investigate Quilter's business dealings, then I will head eastwards. The game's afoot!
So the premise is essentially like a Sherlock Holmes mystery, but I will say it's an extremely good and well-polished version of that format. And the fact that it is taking place with the universe of Doctor Who and the Paternoster Gang is what gives it like such a fresh feeling about it. I really liked this one. I think that Dan Starkey's done a really good job at making the mystery intriguing, making all the mysteries ultimately add up to a satisfying conclusion. I think the hidden strength of Symmetry of Death is how emotionally invested Vastra gets in this particular case because of whom it involves and the fact that it has something to do with some species from the dawn of time, much like her. Now, it does seem a little bit like, oh, what a coincidence that it just so happens to be a solution that Vastra uniquely seems to know. And there is also a bit of a reveal where it's like, oh, Vastra actually knew this extra dimension to this part of the mystery. It would have been really good if you'd mentioned that earlier, but I think that's a bit of a nitpick in the grand scheme of this. This is a really good Sherlock Holmes homage. I think the cast are really, really terrific. I think that Dan Starkey has given himself some really fun interactions. There's clearly a bit of favoritism in terms of the characters here in Symmetry of Death. It's really, really good. And it is all leading to a conclusion that has been hinted at for quite a few months now. The Paternoster Gang were in a Once and Future box set story with the 10th Doctor played by David Tennant. And the Doctor in that story is like, oh, I know you. I was at your wedding. I was at Jenny and Vastra's wedding. But at this point in the story, Jenny and Vastra are not officially married, in terms of they've not had a proper full-blown ceremony. And Until Death Do Us Part by Lisa McMullen, Catherine Stewart's character, Jenny, decides, yes, I want us to get married. I want us to have a full-blown ceremony. I want my parents and my family and friends to be there so that I can say in front of everybody I care about that I love you and I want to spend my life with you. It is very gay and very lovely and very romantic. However, there is a surprise appearance. There is Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor. There's also a bunch of doppelgangers stalking the streets as well. There is a Vastra on the streets and there's a Vastra in the Paternoster house. There is a Doctor who apparently left somebody at the Isle 35 years ago, Miss Faversham, played by Beth Palmers, who claims that she met Charles Dickens and her story was adapted for Great Expectations, which is a really interesting wrinkle in the story, Miss Faversham, played by Beth Chalmers. But the wedding day approaches and they're getting everything in order. Let's play a clip from Till Death Do Us Part.
My suggestions for the wedding breakfast? Would you care to try?
Is everything in aspic, Strax?
Everything apart from the desserts.
And what's for dessert?
Blancmange, ma'am.
So the entire meal wobbles.
I have made certain of it.
A hen party?
Apparently, they're quite the done thing.
But we don't keep chickens.
No, it's nothing to do with chickens.
Then why is it called a hen party?
Because in Middle English, the word hen referred to any female animal.
So it is a party for females only.
And Strax. I invited Strax.
Do you mean a bridal shower?
Oh, far more exciting than a bridal shower. We shall make our way across the city, from tavern to tavern, and we must all wear matching pink sashes, signifying that we're a party of hens.
Sorry I'm late. Here is my chicken.
Love it. Here is my chicken. It's very funny. Anyway, it's what I loved about this story in particular is just how invested and committed to being the best man or the bridesmaids or the father of both brides Strax is. He just wants to be really involved in the wedding, and it is very, very lovely. It's really lovely to see. There is some tension, of course, because Jenny wants to have a really big wedding, a wedding bigger than the Queen herself, but Vastra wants a bit more of a muted affair due to her being a lizard woman from the dawn of time. So there's a little bit of tensions there, some relatable domestics, but there's something maybe a little bit more supernatural going on here, which is making all of the couples in London a little bit more aggressive with each other. The police report an increase in the crimes of passion that are taking place because something is stalking the streets of London, and maybe that could be what has brought the 8th Doctor here, because he does not seem to recall leaving Miss Faversham down the aisle 35 years ago, even though she claims to recognise him. And if you want a Paternoster Gang story that features the 8th Doctor, you're technically going to get it. Paul McGann is great, but he's not in this very much. If you're someone who's like, I want a full-blown Paternoster Gang and 8th Doctor story, you're not really going to get it. He's only in a couple of scenes, which is a little bit disappointing. However, Rogues Gallery, Trespassers 1, does end with a bit of an open ending, with the second box set coming out in April 2024. We don't have any casting details or anything announced for that at time of making this video, but hopefully maybe the 8th Doctor is involved in that as well and the adventure can continue, because it ends in a really, really interesting place that indicates that this Trespassers story is going to be a long-running story, and that's quite exciting. But this story, just in and of itself, Till Death Do Us Part, is a really interesting historical drama. You've got Bedlam being included here as well. There's a mystery about it being set on fire. There's a mystery with Miss Faversham. And of course, the doppelganger element of the story that they're trying very, very hard to ignore because they're trying to plan a wedding, which is a really effective framing device. It's a really good story, and the wedding itself that it culminates to is very satisfying, but then you get to the ending and the open nature of the ending, and it makes you really, really intrigued for future box sets. Or at least I was really, really intrigued. Now, like I said, this is me listening to the Paternoster Gang Big Finish stories for the very first time. They've been doing these for several years. There's Heritage 1, 2, 3, and 4. They've made several appearances as well in like Jago and Lightfoot. There was the Once and Future from a few months back with the 10th Doctor, which had the Paternoster Gang in it, fighting off H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, which was really, really good. So I can't say if this is like an improvement on those sets, or if this is just familiar ground, but in terms of a new jumping on point for these characters, this was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. There's nothing mind-blowing, there's nothing that's going to change your life. If you are a fan who really enjoyed the Paternoster Gang on the TV screens, this is really safe. This is essentially like 3, 4 out of 5 star stories back to back to back. Like, really good track record, like batting really good averages for an entire box set. None of these are bad. There isn't one particular story that is like head and shoulders better than the other. These are like 3 consistently fun, entertaining, and dramatically involving stories with these characters. That's not afraid to get silly, that's not afraid to get funny, but it is also capable of some real moments of intimacy, some real moments of some dramatic heft, particularly towards the end of Symmetry of Death with Vastra's, with Neve McIntosh's character Vastra. She's so good in this box set. All of the cast are really good in this as well. Paul McGann has a small but pretty effective role in the last story. I enjoyed this one a lot. This is my introduction to the Paternoster Gang Big Finish box set, and I'm glad that this was a really good one to start off with. And like I said, I'm pretty excited for Trespassers 2, which comes out in April. We don't have any details or any casting other than the main 3. Hopefully Paul McGann is in this one, because they set some really interesting stuff up here at the end of part 1. Let's see if that continues. I'm invested. I'm definitely invested.